Good morning, friends. Today we have on our show Irfan Lalani, who is the founder and managing trustee at Code to Enhance Learning Trust. He's a mechanical engineer who loves teaching and currently is working to bring coding to kids and schools so that they can express and solve problems. He's also passionate about engineering and he believes that engineering can help find rational solutions to real world problems, keeping in mind all the constraints that we face. He's currently working at Code to enhance learning, as well as and developing the curriculum and also training teachers. He also has written a book called Code with Scratch to enhance learning by beginners. So, Irfan, welcome. Good morning to you, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Ankur, for inviting me on this platform. I think I'm really fan of the word, purpose beyond profit. So I'm looking forward to, this conversation, I see. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. So, Irfan, today, as we discussed, we will be talking about social innovation. So, budding entrepreneurs can take away something about what social innovation is all about, and who better than you to talk about it. I can clearly see that you have sort of done bootstrapping of your enterprise. You started small, and you are really into empowering the impoverished or so-called not so students who do not have the advantage of financial comforts or do not have the financial backing to maybe invest lots of money into coding, but you've sort of made it easy for them as well as the students. So I really wanted to discuss with you this whole concept of social innovation. So the way Stanford defines social innovation is that these are basically new social practices that aim to meet social needs in a better way than existing solutions. And once you do that, it improves the working conditions, education practices, community development, or health. So social innovation is all about creating ideas for change. So tell me one thing. When I was studying about you and researching about code to enhance learning, one of the things that you mentioned is that you bring about customized interventions in schools and organizations working with children to find out what are their needs and what sort of uh, teaching curriculum should they have. So can you help us understand how did you come about this customized intervention, and how do you actually assess the needs of these schools?
Sure. I think it's a very interesting question. So, Code to Enhance Learning basically uses coding as a tool to build 21st century skills like critical thinking, creativity, perseverance, collaboration in children, those who are in grade 4 up till grade 9. So, first, before I answer the question of how we do a customized intervention, as we are talking about social innovation, so I think the first thing we need to do is understand what's the social problem, we are trying to work on. So, there is a report, of World Economic Forum of 2016, which says that the 21st century skills, which are problem solving, thinking, creativity, working together, communicating, so these are all very important for our children to thrive. Now they have done a survey of 90 countries, and they found out that the developed countries are a bit on the higher side of the skills as compared to their counterparts. There is also one more a report in
Hmm.
that they have included that the kids, those who have higher critical thinking or problem solving, they have higher foundational literacy and numeracy skills. Now when we talk about India, or maybe let's specifically
Mm-hmm.
the state of Gujarat, because I work based out of Ahmedabad. So if you will see the Asar report, so Asar does a report where they evaluate the learning levels of the children. So it says that around 40 percentage of the kids are not able to read in their Gujarati mother tongue in grade 6. They are not able to do division in grade 8.
Okay.
And for me, this data is very shocking. When you say 60 percentage of the kids are not able to do division in grade 8, that's shocking for me. And if you see the previous correlation of how literacy and
Hmm.
thinking is related, I think it scares me when I see this kind of literacy levels in Ahmedabad or in Gujarat, that what would be the levels of 21st century skills of our kids in our classroom. Now, why this is a social problem, so we have a very ambitious vision of 5 trillion economy, or becoming the largest economy in the world. And if we don't empower our children with these skills, so I think it's going to be very difficult for all of us to reach that mark, and that is going to influence everyone. So this is the bigger
Hmm.
chunk of problem which we are trying to
Yeah.
tackle, that how do you give opportunities to kids so that they can thrive in this innovative world. Now, to do that, we use coding as a tool, because there is a report which says that kids really like to work on digital gadgets, and I think it's not a science. We all have seen, that how kids are very much excited to work on computers, how they are excited to work on digital devices. So we thought of that, why not use this
Yeah.
tool, and let children create with the help of it. And the best way to go about it is using coding, because it helps you to create. And if you will see western countries, they have already started doing it. So I think that's how this solution
Yes.
came in. Before that, coding was taught in a way that it gives an exposure to a software field, where it would be kids would be exposed to it in higher grades, which would be 11th, 12th, or maybe in 10th grade. But I think that age is little bit too far, and I think we need to tap kids early. Moreover, coding should be used as a tool,
Hmm.
rather than focusing on that how kids could become a computer scientist or computer engineers. On the contrary, it should be used as a color, like how we use color in the classroom. It's one of the tools which helps kids to be creative. So I think that's one of the solutions we have got in
Yeah.
to bring about the change, or that's one of the innovations we have at CEL. Now, after
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
for 5 years and with my Teach for India experience, what I realized is that every school is very different. So, what we basically do at CEL is we try to have customized intervention with different schools, non-profits, so that they are able to bring coding to their children, and kids are able to express and solve problem.
Hmm.
So when I started interacting with different founders or principals, what I realized that every school has a very different way of working. They have a very different sense of how their vision statements are made. So, and even every school has a different kind of
Hmm.
resource and audience which they are catering to. So I think this led me to a belief that there is not a single silver bullet which is going to reach out to everyone or which is going to solve all our problems. So what we
Hmm.
thought of is that it is a better idea to go and understand the need of the school or the non-profit, and then try to have customized intervention for them. So currently, when I say
Hmm.
customized intervention, so it would look in terms of from which grade we are supposed to start. For example, there are certain schools, maybe let's say in the intervention of Teach for India, where they would have better literacy scores. So at that time, it becomes easy for us to start intervention
Hmm.
early as well. Let's say from grade 4 or grade 5. However, there could be different schools where the
Yeah.
literacy levels are not good, and maybe we need more time. So the intervention could start at grade 6. So these are different. One of the things is at
Hmm.
what point we are supposed to start. Who is going to implement the curriculum? How the curriculum is going to look like? What kind of funds we are going to ask? When we are going to go into partnership, because there are certain organizations those who have good amount of fund and they are ready to pay for it. But there are certain organizations where it's hard for them to survive. So can we do customization in terms of what we are asking for the funds as well? So these are like different ways how do we customize our intervention when we work with
Yeah,
different tools. Now one of the important aspects when
yeah,
you introduced social innovation, where you said that it has to surpass the norm, or whatever the existing solutions were there, it should go beyond that. But I think another
correct,
important criteria of a social innovation is that it should also keep on monitoring the impact of the organization. So how do we assess our impact is we have developed certain rubrics which helps us to know that what are critical thinking level of the children, how kids are collaborating right now, how kids are persevering, and what kind of creativity on our rubric we are able to integrate into the children when we work with them. So currently we have a score of around 60
hmm,
or 65 percentage on this rubric. Now what does this mean is that kids are able to identify very simple problems around them, then they are able to think of some creative solutions. uh, they are able to work with their team, identifying certain responsibilities which they are supposed to share, and if there are any differences which comes along, they are able to identify how should we sort out these differences. And also one of the interesting things we have seen is that kids now say that I am going to be hopeful, or maybe I can do it, when they are facing the challenge. So it's a very beautiful way of persevering when you are facing challenge. So this is how we try to assess the impact of our intervention. And briefly, just one sentence I would make and close this response. So we also monitor the views on YouTube of our learning content, how many organizations we are working with, and also number of kids and teachers we are able to train. So this is how we are able to assess our impact in the society. So sorry if I have gone a bit into much detail. You are on mute, Ankur.
sorry. So I was saying that, not at all. I think those are very valid points. In fact, you covered one more additional question which I was going to ask later, which was that how do you actually measure the impact? And some key things that you pointed out, one was about that report, and I'll tell you, I think it's the World Economic Forum which came out with the report on which are the careers on the rise and which are the careers on the decline. And coincidentally, two important skills which are on the rise and which will be very much in demand in the next uh, decades would be coding and critical thinking, which you talked about. So, kudos to you for trying to inculcate those skills in the kids. Other than that, I think what's also important is that the way you define it is slightly different than the way a capitalist would define innovation, because a capitalist would typically say that the innovation should bring in more value, and by more value he would probably mean shareholder value. But I love the fact that you are talking about the UN sustainable goals and how your organization links your organization's objectives link back to the UN sustainable goals, right? So that's very commendable. Thank you for that. Now, I mean, if we could also summarize your response, I think one of the key things what I understand is you have come up with a framework for assessment. So
Yeah,
whenever you go to any school or organization,
yeah,
there's a framework which you use where you have various parameters depending
yeah,
on which you then decide where to begin with, what's the depth you want to go to,
yeah,
right? So you would
yeah,
say, okay, they have probably enough funds, so I don't really need to put in enough funds. Oh, they don't have computers at all, then probably I'll have to get computers for them, things like that.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I mean, that's a wonderful framework which actually entrepreneurs can also use and build on their own to assess the various social requirements in other fields as well. So that's one takeaway which social entrepreneurs should take from this particular conversation.
And
So,
if I could
moving on to the next question. Yeah, please.
yeah, just if I could add briefly one more point to it, because right now we were talking about much of quantitative aspects, like how kids are moving on
Yeah,
the rubric, or how much
right.
computers are being installed. But then there is also another aspect of how you do things in a qualitative way. So for that, what we keep on
Hmm.
doing is we very much work closely with the parents, and after regular intervals, we invite parents to our classrooms, and kids are supposed to share their projects with parents. So now what happens with this is, up till now,
Wow.
when parents were just thinking in terms of numbers, like that these are the scores my kids are going to have, which is of course a norm in India, and I don't see that is going to quickly go away. But when you make a parent see their child talking in front of an audience of 60, and who has been a vegetable seller or an rickshaw driver or a daily wage worker, to see their kids talking in front of a platform of with an audience of 60 plus, working on a computer, so it blows away their mind, and that brings the qualitative aspects also. So I think it's there is a very good amount
Yeah,
of need where you balance both the things, that how you are working on the qualitative aspects to assess your impact, and can you also create proof points with the stories and all the qualitative things.
correct, correct. And the parents can actually see how the social problems are getting solved, right? So
Yeah.
then it goes much beyond the numbers or academic grades. So that's a great
Yeah.
point. Uh, See, one more thing which you mentioned is that in the last 5 years or so, you have grown as an educator. You obviously have a lot of experience working with Teach for India, and but even after you've grown as an educator, it has come through a lot of failures. You have failed, you have learned, you have reinvented a number of initiatives. Can you explain a couple of those failed initiatives and how did you reinvent those?
Yeah. So I am a very big fan of a quote of Mark Zuckerberg. So I think once he said that the ideas don't come fully formed, but it takes time. You keep on working on them, and then the all the puzzle pieces starts coming together. So when we talk about a social innovation which is going to be better than what was the status quo up till now, I think it doesn't happen in one day. It happens over a period of time, where you fail, and then you move
Hmm.
ahead, you try different things. So initially, I can tell you the first story. So when I was teaching grade 3 and grade 4 kids in Ahmedabad, in a locality where many the community was developed after 2002 riots, and people came from different parts of India, and they got situated over there. The school was located in a huge garbage dump, where whole Ahmedabad's garbage comes over there. So there is a huge mountain,
Hmm.
and our school was right besides that. So the first time I started teaching coding is to grade 3 and grade 4 kids in those environment. And the first thing what I did was I started using the curriculum of code.org to implement the whole curriculum, and how kids could start learning to code. And if you will see the code.org resources, they
Hmm.
are mostly online. So where you require good amount of internet connection,
Hmm.
for kids to learn, and if you want it in the classroom. So at that time I didn't have much funds. So I would have I would ask people for funds, but then it was very tricky situation. So we would always run out of our internet supply, and then our classes would stop. So the first problem, the change
Hmm.
happened when we shifted from code.org to Scratch, which is a platform which everyone could use it offline as well. So I think this was the first time I realized
Right.
that you don't have to stop when, like, a problem comes, but if you are able to answer that, then your solution is going to go a bit, like, on the higher edge. So that was the first, like,
Hmm.
failure I had, where we were not, so kids would come up and say when we were not having the internet, that when again we are going to start, like, our coding classes, because kids really love it because they are able to
Correct.
create, and they feel confident about it, that I'm able to create something or the other. So that's the first story, like, where I felt miserable, that I'm not able to help them out. But then just thinking, or, like, exploring, helped me to find another platform. After that, I thought of that Scratch is a very wonderful platform, but in India there are no resources available for, like, teachers or parents or kids to learn coding using Scratch. I bought a book which was of, I think, 2,500 rupees. I got it, like, from UK. I
Mm-hmm.
ordered it on Amazon, and I realized that this is not going to help, like, teachers, because teachers are not paid in that manner that anyone is going to invest 2,000, like, 500 rupees on a book. So at that time I thought ki there should be a
Right.
book, and that's when I started writing a book. I got it published. But when I started taking this book to, like, different schools, so what I realized, that principals loved the content, but there was, like, no capability on the side of the teacher, or any guidelines given from the government in, like, 2016 or 17, so that the coding curriculum could be a part of the school system. So then I realized that we need to have an organization which totally works on this, because these are going to be important skills for our children to, like,
Mm-hmm.
grow and, like, learn them. So that was the second change, or like, which I had, that from going as a freelancer or a teacher or as one person, can there be an organization, and that's when the CL started. Besides that, we have done, like, a number
Hmm.
of changes in our way how we operate. So initially the idea was just to work with teachers, but then we realized that there are certain school which doesn't have computer teachers at all. So then we started our experts or volunteers to go into
Right.
the classroom and then teach. Then we started organizing this competition called CL Kids Hackathon, when we saw that the demand from the parent side was
Hmm.
not there. So it was very important for us to showcase the proof point,
Hmm.
that when kids learn to code and create and solve problems, how much amount of shift in their mindset, in their skills, or the amount of confidence they get, so that parents and the other education fraternity could
Correct.
understand about this. So that was the another thing, like, which we included.
Hmm.
Now our focus is more towards, one of the learning is that how we can have more open source resources for everyone to learn coding. So up till now, because we
Yeah.
have realized that it's not possible for CL to go around in whole India and, like, educate kids. So one of the solution is, like, can we have more open source resources aligned to the needs of India, thinking about what are
Hmm.
the features, like, capabilities are there, and can we design content in that way which anyone could get it, like, easily. So this is how, like, failures have been. But
Wow.
then just thinking one step in a different way helps you to have an idea, like, which is better than what was there, like, before.
Hmm. So two things here. One is obviously what you have used is a beta version model, right? That launch something, and then as you go ahead, you learn from the feedback, right?
Yeah.
What happens is most of the time people start something, they face some or the other obstacle, and then they stop because they are not approaching the problems from different places, or they want a they have a particular perception in mind that this is the way it's going to work out, and
Yeah.
if they don't reach there in the initial steps itself, they get disheartened and drop the idea. So I
Yeah.
think one key takeaway from this is that using the beta version, approaching the problem from different angles, and constantly readjusting your strategies to make sure that you achieve your objective, right? If one thing fails, try something else. uh, but then you truly need to own that particular initiative, and need to have passion towards that particular objective to think about it from different points of view. So
Yeah.
yeah, those were some great examples of how you overcome some of the initial challenges and where you are going with it. Now,
Yeah. Can I
when we talk
can I
about
add, Ankur,
yeah,
can I add something to
yeah, yeah,
this?
sure,
Very
sure, sure,
very quick
absolutely,
point.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think what you said, it's very important for every entrepreneur, to keep on believing in their idea and keep on working it, and to have different
Hmm.
lenses or different perspective. But then, what I have
Hmm.
found, and even when I was reading about social innovations, so one of the criterias of the innovation is that you are required to work with different stakeholders in the community so that the idea which you are working on could go and thrive in the community. So I think what CL has done
Right.
really well is, through the support of TFI, other mentors which were available, and talking to more people in the education sector, talking more with the people, those who have been CEOs of IT companies, that what things are required actually in field. So I think that has brought in lot of
Mm-hmm.
perspective. So one, what I just wanted to share was that it's not just thinking of one person, but it's about the whole community, and interacting with them, and talking about that what things are working and what could be changed really helps to seep in the idea into the whole community. And I think that's a very important aspect of having a social innovation.
Yeah, yeah, and that also sort of partially answers my next question about innovative marketing strategies or how you spread your word, right? The When you talk to more people from different fields, you get different perspectives, and it gives you a chance to solve your problems and apply different formulas to solve your problem rather. Are there any other innovative marketing strategies that you have employed to spread the word about CEL? I mean, you obviously do not have the backing of huge marketing budgets the way
Yeah.
some of the other IT education companies have.
Yeah.
And obviously, the target audience for you is the lower social class, or I would say disadvantaged class of the society. So,
Yeah.
how do you spread the word? How do you get them to spend time uh, on your initiative, or get their kids to come to school, spend additional time? Because in India there is this focus that learn fast, get good grades, get a job, right? Especially in middle class and lower middle class families.
Yeah.
Everything else, in a way, is not really considered education, it's considered more of an extracurricular activity. So, what
Yeah.
are the various innovative marketing strategies that you have developed or persuasive techniques that you have developed to get these people to look at your point of view, right?
Yeah.
And spread the word about CEL.
Yeah. So I think you correctly said, that we haven't been very aggressive on marketing. I think just imagine, if you have if a child has got a new, maybe a new toy, or some new idea or some new activity, then what you would see in the
Hmm.
child is, the child is very much engaged with that. He or she would keep on talking about it all the time. Oh, this is how it works, and this is what I have done with that. So I think what CL or me have tried to do is be very organic in terms of how we are communicating our ideas with people around. So one of the things we have done is try
Mm-hmm.
to talk about each and every small moment of change with our very nearer, or the stakeholders, those who are around us, and keep doing that consistently. So so that people are able to understand that this organization here is for a longer time, and they are able to understand, or we are able to build credibility in the eyes of people around, and then we get references, or we are able to connect with more people. So I think the one of the strategy is like, keep talking about very small things. So very small things means what? So
Hmm.
I remember there is a kid, like, in my classroom, and she writes B instead of D. So she has a small, like, learning disability, but then she's very excited to code.
Yeah.
So when we are working on JavaScript, it becomes like, very tricky for her to, like, write spellings. And what she did, like, we were making some
Hmm.
calculator, and she never used spellings, like, in that whole web application she was making, and she made everything through signs and symbols. Okay, so for me as a teacher, this is like,
Hmm.
a very huge shift, that how kids are, like, overcoming, like, their weaknesses, and maybe, like, using their strengths to communicate their ideas. So you could see these are, like, very
Hmm.
small things, but then when you keep on sharing these things around at a regular interval, then people, like, obviously they are going to understand that how, like, what's the vision of the organization, and they would like to engage with it. So I think that's something, like, which has been core to our
Hmm.
work, is like, talking about our work. The second, when you don't have money, okay, so then you think of what could be other platforms which you could use to, like, talk about your work. So it's more about, like, going, and, like, just introducing yourself to CEOs of, like, other organizations, and talking with their about the ideas, coming on the platforms, like how you have designed this wonderful platform to, like, share our ideas, going into competition. So these are, like, some of the ways where you could do things for free, and obviously you get to reach out to so many people, like, through
Right.
this. So I think just thinking about what things are
Yeah.
available for free, and just being organic about it, has helped us to communicate our ideas, like, more.
Yeah, great, great. So one of the things which you've obviously come up with, the hackathon, right?
Yeah.
And that's obviously a great marketing tool as well as a great way to spread awareness about coding. We have many hackathons and many such competitions across the country now, and I have seen them prosper, especially in the last 5 or 6 years more. Could you let us more about the CEL hackathon, when it happens? How did you come up with this idea? How do you go about organizing it? Who all can participate? Is it open to all over India, or is it virtual? Whether is it in whether it is at some location. Now, obviously, due to COVID, you can't have it physically. But how did you come up with this particular idea, and how did you go about organizing it?
Yeah. So as, like, we were discussing earlier, that uh, like, so you obviously, like, you face certain challenge when you, like, want your idea to, like, go ahead in a social innovation, like, kind of thing, and you want people to,
Hmm.
from, like, different communities to be a part of it and be a stakeholder in that. And one of the challenge we were facing
Hmm.
in 2017 was that how to make parents aware that this is something, like, these are the skills which are going to be needed, like, by our children, so that they are able to solve contextual problems around them. So we thought of, like, that
Hmm.
let's organize a competition and give platforms to kids, and just, like, recognize them for all the hard work they are going to do. So that's how we came up with the idea of hackathon. And the first hackathon which we did was with 40 girls, in one of the schools in Ahmedabad. It's an all girls school where kids come from, like, from low income and affordable, like, families, or middle income or low income, like, families. So yeah, so that's how, like, it started. Then the idea was that how, like, we could bring
Hmm.
the sustainable development goals into this program. So we gave the idea of, like, that kids are supposed to
Right.
solve problems aligned to UN sustainable development goal, and they are going to see in their community,
Hmm.
that, like, what problems are stopping them to achieve this goal, and they are going to create certain projects on it. So currently, we received this year around 500 entries through 10 plus cities. We also partner with or collaborate with Teach for
Wow.
India, Tech Mahindra Foundation. There are other schools, those who are in different parts of India. So kids from them, from their schools, be a part of it. The criteria is the kid should be from grade 5 up till grade 9. We do this on first of in the first week of February. So that's when our problem statement would go to the children, and they are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to work on it. They have 1 week of time to think about the problem and come up with the solution for it. They write beautiful concept notes as well, to help us understand that what the thought process has been. uh, Now this is the whole framework of it. Also in this international schools as well, participate, because we want to create opportunities for every kid. um, One of the things which we did this year was, many kids were not having the exposure of coding when they go in low resource or low income schools. So we tried to have webinars, learning videos
Hmm.
for them, so that not only they are getting a platform to showcase their talent, but they are also getting the learning opportunities in a very quick frame of time, and they can further keep on adding on to their knowledge throughout the whole year. So that's
Hmm.
how the program has been designed. And then we ask
Right.
IT companies to be part of it. We call CEOs who are going to interview these children next week, who are going to be top 10 winners. So that becomes a very great experience for children, that oh, a CEO is going to interview me. And imagine the amount of confidence
Right.
puts you in.
Hmm.
So this is how the whole program is
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
designed. And just yesterday we got goodies from Google as well. So the winners are going to get certain
Wow.
which are branded by Google. So I think that the idea of CL Kids Hackathon was that how to create a platform where kids are coming in, they are taking the leadership of it. They are making the ideas of change, and can we project this proof points to the whole community, that this is how the change is going to look like in the children, if we keep on teaching coding to kids, and helping them to solve problem.
Wow, wow. So great, congratulations, first of all. I mean, being recognized by large IT companies, especially someone like Google, is a huge achievement and is sort of proof of what you are doing. Again, congratulations on that. What I really also like about CEL Hackathon is that the way you have linked it with the UN Sustainable Goals.
Yeah.
I've seen other hackathons as well, and it's all about, okay, come up with some mechanical device to solve some problem. And also there I see that there are a lot of social problems being addressed, maybe by way of solar energy, or maybe helping people with some disability or something like that. So it has a social aspect to it. But when you tell kids to actually tell them what that UN social goals are, right? Social development goals are, and then you get them to think in that direction. You will probably get more focused solutions around those key problem areas. And obviously, when you start focusing on a particular objective, then the solutions you get are more practical and more geared towards achieving those or solving those problem areas. Could you maybe share with us, some very good examples of
Yeah.
kids coming up with absolutely wonderful social innovations?
Yeah. And just I so some of these projects now I also start have started viewing them as a social innovation actually. Because it is
Hmm.
meeting those criteria as well, it's not for an individual profit, it's more for community. They try to engage with different audiences. So there is
Hmm.
a bunch of siblings from Chennai. So last year,
Hmm.
they had so we gave like one of our goal which we focused on. So there are 17 sustainable development goals are there. Every year we focus on four goals,
Yeah.
which we feel that currently maybe
Hmm.
as per the current situation in India, we want to work on it. So there was this team of siblings. They picked up the idea of zero hunger, and then they talked about with the people that do you know about zero hunger and what's the problem. So what they realized is that people were not
Hmm.
aware of how this zero how hunger happens in the country, what are certain causes of it. And they thought that
Hmm.
if the people are not aware about the causes of hunger, how people are going to go and address it. So one, you need to first understand the root cause of it.
Right.
Now they came up with a very wonderful game which is very similar to Monopoly. I think Monopoly is something which we all have played in our childhood, and maybe right now we could be playing it as well. So
Yeah.
what these people did was they designed a game called
Right.
Foodopoly, where two players are supposed to play the game, and there
Mm-hmm.
are certain conditions so suppose the rain is going to be good in India, so they would get certain points for it. So they are supposed to roll the dice, and their characters are going to move ahead in the game, and they would reach a place where they would get points for it. So this helped if they would go in
Okay.
certain green zone where the water is good, or maybe soil is good, or maybe some other factor which causes which reduces hunger, then the players are going to get points for it. If they would go in a place where the rainfall is low,
Hmm.
there is violence, or something like that is going to happen, or maybe countries are going to be at war. So these are certain condition which is more towards zero hunger. So in this beautiful way, while playing a game like Monopoly, you could understand all the reasons why zero hunger is caused. And they were grade 5 or grade 6 kids. Now imagine, kids are researching about a problem, talking to people around them, making this solution. And at the end what they did was they called their family members, their grandparents, and they pitched that idea to their parents. So one of our criteria is also to share about your work. So you would find pictures on our social media page. And
Fantastic.
with this solution, they would go in the community and share it with peers, or friends or community members, so that they also understand about this. So I think this is very interesting story which has stayed with me, that how kids could be creative to solve problem, and they could be really smart actually.
Yeah, yeah. Just imagine any of these ideas being picked up by United Nations or UNICEF or some of these large organizations, and then being implemented in a huge scale. That would be so wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's all thanks to the pedagogy or the way you've been teaching it, right? And the linkage between the goals and the way you are teaching them and approaching the problem, that actually becomes critical. And that is something which I see as a key differentiator between your organization and some of the other coding classes or curriculum or organizations which are there in the market. That thinking about the social gains or how we can benefit the society, and then approaching it through various means and through various social innovation is actually the need of the day, right? Or you may learn code and you may make money, tons of money, but if you're doing it at the cost of harming the society or by just making them more consumerist, then it's not really going to benefit humanity in the long term. So yeah, I mean, kudos to the way you've come up with this particular structure, and all the best to your kids as well. um, uh, with that, I would want to move on to the next question, which is look, do you think that having a for-profit enterprise actually fosters innovation, more than a non-profit, or do you think lack of resources actually better motivates to innovate? Because both have their pros and cons. While there's a saying that um, necessity is the mother of all inventions. It's
Yeah.
also true that when you don't really have resources, sometimes it becomes very, very difficult to innovate. Things which you could learn, like 3D printing, or for that matter, art, or for that matter, design skills. If you have an iPad vis-a-vis a PC, right, a bulky PC, the one who has that resource, an iPad, would definitely learn faster than the other kid, um, considering all things being equal, right? So what
Yeah.
are your thoughts about it? And yeah, that would be really interesting to know.
Yeah. So, I think it's firstly, like, it's a very interesting question, like, that how, what actually, like, fosters innovation. Is it going to be the for-profit structure, or it's going to be a non-profit, like, structure? And I think it's a very hard thing to comment on, or maybe, like, give a blanket statement ki, oh, this is going to be the right way, because
Hmm.
there are so many different parameters, like, which goes into play, like, which is about, what's the background of the entrepreneur, what is the place, like, where the entrepreneur is going to
Hmm.
work, what kind of solution it's going to be. So there are so many things to it, but let's take a, like, very
Hmm.
general example. So suppose you have identified a problem, okay, and then you have got, like, some innovation to it. Oh, that maybe, like, this is one way we could, like, bring about change. So till this phase, when you
Yeah.
have thought about the problem and you have thought about the solution, it's a social innovation right now, because you have already got the idea, and like, you might have tested it
Right.
with a couple of people. So till that point, the point of being for profit or not for profit doesn't come in. For example, with CL also, I used to teach coding
Hmm.
into
Hmm.
classroom, and I got to know, like, that this is something, like, which I can bet on, and this is a great idea. Until then, I was not worried about whether I'm going to go for, like, for profit or not for profit. So I think at the initial stages, it doesn't matter, like, whether, I think the idea of for profit, not for profit doesn't come in. Now, where it comes in is, that
Hmm. Hmm.
there is a limited amount of fund, like, which is available in non-profit sector, because there are, like, companies those who are going to give grant, and, like, there's a limited amount of it. So if your solution requires like, further innovation, like, for example, Google keeps on innovating, like, different things, and lot of amount of, like, money goes into the research process of it. If like, of course, when you have good amount of funds, scaling up becomes really easy for you. You can hire people, you can hire different, uh, like, people of different mindsets, and you could go ahead. So I think in those stages, what I feel is, for profit has a better leverage, because there are, like, so many people those who are, like,
Hmm.
you have, I think, a little bit higher amount of funds, which you can put it in your organization and you can scale up. But at that time, the catch is, the idea should remain social innovation only. It should not be, where, like, then we are shifting it
Hmm.
to a particular individual's benefit, and then you lose on all the assessment criterias, which proves, like, that this is going to be, like, how it is impacting the society. So I think the people those who are, like, very
Hmm.
smart at balancing those things, I think for them, like, it becomes very easy to have a for profit structure, because they are able to hold on to all the metrics of, like, social innovation very properly. But I think that's something, like, which has to be
Hmm.
thought of, like,
Yeah.
or maybe, like, cautious about. And I think, talking about
Hmm.
lack of resources, I think what I have learned, or what I have realized, is being empathetic to problems, just understanding problems, being exposed to it, having the skill of thinking in a different way, to be creative, to critique something. I think those set of skills really inspires innovation rather than lack of resources, because lack of resources are, like, faced by everyone, but everyone doesn't come and, like, innovate. but the people those who are able to innovate is like they are able to connect with the problem and see it in a different lens. Of course, the lack of resources piece comes when you want your solution to be more efficient or more effective. So I think that's when lack of resources inspires you, that how can I make my idea more efficient. So I think this is the way I see
Yeah,
what fosters innovation.
right. No, I completely second what you said, and I think the key message here is that first is that you need to connect with a problem, right?
Yeah.
That really does not really require resources. That requires a innate sense of inquisitiveness and maybe coaching from people like you. Then you talked about starting up with some sort of a pilot or some sort of an initial prototype. And once you reach a scale, then comes the need for resources, where you can take it to a much wider base. So I totally second that, but I also want to add my own experience here, and what I have sort of learned as a father. Uh, there's a concept called forced scarcity, right? Which is basically you create some sort of a scarcity despite the fact that you can have it, but you create scarcity. And the only reason you create scarcity is so that the kid can think,
Hmm.
right? So I remember, my son is now 13, but I remember when he was a kid, our first me and my wife had agreed that our first reaction to anything that he wants to buy should be a no, right? And a polite no. So we would go to a shop and he would say, I want that plastic gun, and we would say, no, you can't have that.
Hmm.
uh, Maybe try building one, right?
Hmm.
And then he would crib about it. How can you build a gun? How will I shoot this, that? And
Hmm.
then I used to sit with him on Sundays to
Hmm.
come up with DIY projects, right?
Hmm.
And and I clearly remember he came up with an idea for a gun which was made up of two plastic pens,
Hmm.
and a lever underneath, and then it used to shoot out paper balls, right? He used
Yeah.
to put it in a rubber band. That plastic pen used to work as a barrel, and it used to shoot out any projectile, maybe a paper or a refill or something like that. And he used to be so thrilled with that. And
Hmm.
then it became like a regular pastime,
Hmm.
uh, that every Sunday, you don't have toys, he would think about what can I make out of the things that I have.
Hmm.
And then he would make a spacecraft. I remember one time he made a gigantic 6 feet racing car, racing car track out of a card box. So we had bought a fridge, and it came in the card box. And he said, I have a car now, but how much can I push it from one place to another? So I told him, we have a cardboard. So he said, so I said, you can create a track. So again, he was like, "Arey, how do I create a track? It is so much hard work, this, that." And then I remember spending a Saturday and a Sunday to sort of build a track with him. And there he learned how to make the pillars so that he can support the road, all of that, right? And now he's at a place where he always thinks about, how do I solve this problem if not given the resources,
Hmm.
right? So I think that's a very very good motivator, because it makes you think, first of all.
Hmm.
If you start thinking in terms of lesser resources, it makes you think how to solve it.
Yeah.
Second, it makes you less of a consumerist and more of a problem solver with the existing resources. So if you think about the UN sustainable goals, one thing is recycling, right? So how do
Hmm.
you recycle the existing resources to create something new?
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, those are my thoughts. I think creating some sort of a scarcity is absolutely important in the
Yeah.
initial phases, as at least.
Yeah. So I think just like I just wanted to add like, and I completely agree to like what you are saying, that like we need to create that environment for children. But I think what
Yeah,
also you said is that this is a situation like which is there like with millions of children like in India, where they ask for a
yeah,
toy.
yeah.
Uh, in your case, you created a food scarcity, but in other cases there is actually scarcity. Okay, where parents are not in a
Right,
position where
right,
they could like buy certain things like for their kids. Now what you did was like very wonderful, is you also created an environment for your child to think about the problem, to like be creative about it.
right,
Imagine how many parents in India have firstly those kind of skills to sit with their child and like take them like through this process. So I think what's I completely
yeah.
agree
That's
that
true.
that scarcity is going to be there, but then we need to inculcate, or for social innovation it requires to connect with the problem first, then having those like thinking and empathy towards it.
Correct.
And I think which was a wonderful thing which you did like with your child. But then the idea is that how like we could create such opportunities for millions of children in India. So that's how like I'm seeing things. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So, Irfan, thanks a lot. That was a wonderful session, and all the best for your future journey. We'll keep in touch. Do reach out for me if you require any sort of pro bono consulting or advice on anything, and I'll be
Sure.
more than happy to help you in whichever way or get you connected to other professionals as well.
Sure.
And I'll keep a watch on you and CEL. It's absolutely wonderful what you guys are doing, and I can't wait to meet you in person.
Super. Thank you very much, Ankur, for like this opportunity, because as I said, like these are wonderful places for us to share about our ideas, and like and so I think it's a wonderful work that you are doing. I also like want to thank you, congratulate you like for this, and may like be the power with you and you thrive more like with this idea, and so many more entrepreneurs get a voice like from your platform of purpose before profit.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Irfan. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Thank you, dear listeners. To hear such more inspiring stories of social entrepreneurship, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Until next time, be good, do great.